Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is our Coaching Multiple Students session. So in this session, we're just going to go over some quick tips for coaching multiple children and some quick tips for coaching at home, as well as how to plan and schedule. So when you're thinking about your schedule and creating it, make sure that students can have some charts and they can list their schoolwork that they need to complete each week. Some kids like to write them out like on a whiteboard or even just in their notebook. Um, and sometimes they just like to be able to cross them off as they finish. If all students are involved in an activity meant for one student, they can all count that activity. So some examples would be reading stories together as a family, doing art projects, or trying each other's science experiments. Then you can count that as time. I had a family one time who had 4 children. 2 were in second grade. They had a sixth grader and an eighth grader. And on Tuesdays, they had science afternoons, and they would set up everybody's science from the week and they would do stations. So even the young kids were able to do the older kids' science experiments, and they all learned that together. So that was a really fun thing for them to do. Think about student conduct. Just like in a brick and mortar school, the teacher has classroom rules, and a lot of times kids are able to help create those classroom rules. So here you want to also incorporate rules to keep those distractions to a minimum and to set the expectations during school time. So have students speak with library voices while others are doing their work. Have students even raise their hands if they need assistance. Of course, you can tell them they can just come to you. Make sure that there aren't any loud games or TV while the others are doing their schoolwork. Also, think about having the kids put their tablets and phones in a location where they can access them later. Set times for them to check social media as well as their email. And tell family and friends that you're unavailable from the hours of 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. because that is school time. It's incredibly important to hold that school time at a high priority because if the students are going to brick and mortar, you always try to schedule appointments for after school or first thing in the morning. So really try to do the same thing with your students at home. It's important to have an organized space. So organize a space that is large enough to accommodate everybody, especially if you're going to teach some of those group lessons. The kitchen counters are great. The dining room table is a great place for all of those big group lessons. If you are working from home, position your computer so that kids can come and sit around the screen with you if you need to show them things on your computer in their online school. Or make sure that the area around them is big enough for everybody to come around their computer. Make sure that your chair offers easy access to all of the children. Make sure that whatever you do, you're in a place where they can easily come and ask questions. And create a space for independent work, somewhere that might be away from the other students who are working. Daily household tasks. So again, if you have an appointment, try to schedule it for after school. But if you have to do it during school, bring along some workbooks for like K-5 kids have workbooks, so you can bring like their spelling workbook or their history workbook, and they can work on those workbook pages while they're in the waiting room or even in transit. Writing assignments for the older kids or even just study items for them. If they're studying vocabulary or history, they've got a test coming up. Those are the things that you can bring along for them to work on. Pack a backpack for the family car so that while children can get schoolwork done, um, even, just having like flashcards and coloring pages, spelling lists, all those things are great to have in the car. Present language arts stories as bedtime stories for the whole family. Even those older students who have novels that they're reading, you can use those as family time and, read those classics together and have good discussions as a family. And then the next day, the students will already be familiar with the story and it might be easier to get through the lesson and take less time during the day too. You can count these times of story reading at night for attendance too. If you're working with one student on a lesson and another one needs help, just encourage that other child to move to a lesson with which help is not needed. So sometimes kids get stuck and that's all they see is I can't do this. And so they don't want to move on and they'll just sit and wait until you can come and help. But encouraging them to keep moving forward is a great way to build in those kinds of habits for them. Independent students can help younger students if they are available to help, and then also encourage students to quiz each other when they're studying for tests. They can also quiz you when you're driving to different places or when you're in the kitchen making lunch or making dinner. They can help quiz you to see how much you remember. Don't forget your preschoolers. So help them feel as if they're going to school too. They want to have a schedule. They might have a backpack. They might have a special notebook. Those kinds of things that help them feel like big kids. Take time to fill up their cup in the morning before school starts. Giving them first priority in the morning will set them up for a really good day. And you'll find that just a tiny bit of attention early on invested is going to reap benefits for the rest of the day. You can also block out time in the schedule to spend with your preschooler. So assign independent activities to your other kids, or even when they're just in Class Connect working independently, you can meet up with your preschooler. And that way they'll have your full attention and they'll be able to wait the next time you can't give them full attention. Include them in some of the more exciting lessons. They would like watching those science experiments. They would love to do painting or coloring when the other students are doing art. So think about that as well. And then another tip from a family is switch toys in and out weekly. So take, 5 to 10 toys, put them in a little box, hide them, and then the next week get them back out, put some different toys in, and rotate them. They will be more interested in their toys if they don't see them every day. Plan your day according to your child's strengths. So they have to go to their live class connects that are scheduled. But as far as when they do their homework, allow them to take charge of the times that they work on their homework and the order in which they complete their homework. You'll find that those students are really feeling like this is their school and they have control. Once you find a schedule that fits you, be consistent with it. You can make adjustments if you need to. It does take about a month to really have a good working schedule. Once you have the schedule set, put the schedule in a place where everybody can see it, and then plan appointments around the school schedule. You're probably getting supplies right now, lots and lots of supplies. K-5 gets a whole lot more supplies than middle and high school does, and some of the books will be labeled second semester. Put those second semester books somewhere where they're out of the way but yet easy to get to, and then the rest of things can go in one central location. And just really organize them so that they're easy to get. Even just using a bookcase would be helpful for organizing supplies. In K-5, take advantage of the advanced preparation button so that you know the things that you might have to have on hand before the lesson comes. And if they're daily, everyday type of household items. Use the K-12 boxes in which the supplies were delivered. Use those to organize your books and your materials. You can put all of the art supplies in one box, all of the science supplies in another box. Stand the books up so their spines are on the outside so that they're fitting into those boxes. So you can use those good boxes too. Other tips, put materials that children can work on independently in their own drawer or a filing cabinet, or maybe even in a little basket. Materials that you can give them can include flashcards, spelling practice lists, and educational games. The other thing too is keep the school supplies separate from general family supplies. School supplies such as pencils, eraser, markers, crayons, kid scissors, um, maybe some Sharpies, whatever you guys have, glue sticks, whatever they need to complete lessons. Put those in a separate spot away from family supplies. That way the kids always know where to find things and they always have them. Coaching burnout is a real issue and it can happen before you know it. So just know that coaching children at home can be really stressful and it can lead to burnout. Some of the signs to be on the lookout are physical or emotional exhaustion, depression, a change in sleeping habits, loss or gain of weight, frequent colds, loss of patience, and increased irritability. If you're noticing some of those things, go and schedule some time for yourself with hobbies, exercise, or just simple solitude, just like 5 minutes when your kids are working. Attend High Point events to meet other parents. We're going to have hopefully some in-person meetups this year, but we will see. We do have Learning Coach coffee chats starting soon. Those will be great for you to come in and brainstorm and ask good questions from some of our veteran learning coaches. And then delegate some of your chores to the kids. I mean, by the time my kids were in third grade, they were doing their own laundry. Just giving them good, clear directions and pictures really helps them. Some other coaching tips from other High Point learning coaches. For K-5, double up on lessons like math or grammar and complete them every other day. That way it will help with student attention, reduces prep time as well. For K-5, keep in mind that learning coaches can help students jump to the lesson or unit assessment if they already demonstrate mastery of the objectives, but do communicate with your homeroom teacher regarding this to make sure that that is the best way to help your student get ahead. Strive to begin school each day at a specified time. Keep that lunch break that is scheduled into the schedule. So you would get up maybe at 6:30 or 7, school starts at 8, and then you set an end time as well as 3 o'clock, and then you keep in time for the end of the day for homework maybe. So stay on top of your schedule, change it as you need to make it work well for you. And if you need more help, reach out to your advisor. Plan on spending about 45 minutes of prep time preparing for the next day's lessons, or do them on the weekends. It just takes a couple hours to get ready for the next week. Saves you lots of time and frustration. But do know that the amount of planning does increase with the number of students. So other tips, gather all of the books and materials in the morning so that later you won't have to interrupt a lesson. Make sure your older children can do some of their own prep while you're working with your younger children. Make sure your children know what to do if they've completed an independent task so that they're just not sitting there going, I'm done, I'm done. Make sure that they have their own things that they can work on. Some other tips from HFAM families. Experiment with printing out the weekly and daily plan. Sometimes kids like to mark them off on their own. Whoops. But the OLS and the D2L do put little check marks into the bubbles next to the lesson so they can just watch their progress go right there. Plan ahead by preparing worksheets and documents for your student. You can tear them out of workbook pages, maybe staple them in sections, and then mark pages to read with those little sticky note tabs. Visit the advanced preparation option often. This person said every day, but I think that's a lot. Like, I think if you do it at least once a week, you're going to find what you need. So how do you schedule daily work for multiple children? So if one child is more active and easily distracted, you're going to coach that child first. And then structure your day so that while one child is working independently, you can work with another one. Make sure that each of your students know what must be accomplished each day. Some of them will keep assignment notebooks. This is really helpful for when they go to Class Connects and then they can write their assignments down in these notebooks. Others like to post lists on the refrigerator. Make learning a group effort too. Encourage children to see what the others are doing. Do one subject at a time for all of the students. You can share some materials, but focus on the individual student objectives. And have older children work with your younger children. Remember, it takes time, it takes trial and error, but it does get easier as you go along. And your teacher and advisor are